Hello guys and welcome to TFT Grand Finals, game number 4. Enjoy.
AD flex that can cap out very, very high with either Infinite Team board, for example, with the legendary 5 cost, or even just something like a Belveth board with the Riftwalker, with the Renegades, that has done so well for him throughout the entire tournament.
Yeah, and it'll be really interesting to see. We've had 3, hero augments on stage 2.
Not again.
Hopefully not a 4th here, so we get some more interesting variety. The one positive, though, is if we see that, we'll get a glimpse into what is that strategy, right? Does everyone roll for the same augment? Do we watch them, not slam early? But again, YBY1 especially here should be doing nothing but watching, and trying to grief as well as he can here.
Yeah, going to be opening up on...
Got that admin going.
Admin start and replay.
Ooh.
Love it or hate it, looks like Lulu reroll is on the table here.
I'm looking more at this Gadgettine start, and I feel like the fact he's already got the Gadgettine, because I don't see great Lulu items here, so that makes me a little worried. But again, Gadgettine is not really something that goes into a first place. That's the thing to be worried here, is that he literally just needs a first place. Anything else is completely irrelevant. And looking at these items, these feel
not Lulu.
Yeah, these feel something more like, the Riftwalker that you've seen before. He's holding those Kales looking, oh my goodness.
We're back to hero augments, 2-2-2, and I think we have to be very careful not to pick up a reroll augment, because then it's going to be so easy to target him, so easy for every single player in this game to hold 1 or 2 of whatever he's trying to reroll for and deny him that first place, or maybe even a top 4.
Pray for not adaptive defenses, Hextech Retribution.
Yeah, and so right now we're watching replay, we're watching YBY1, we're seeing what they're doing, and you can see there's this game of chicken going on here. Bentham does manage to slam the Vi already because he's got a 4 underground start, which is great, but also, again, not what he's supposed to be doing right now. He just needs a 7th or better, so we
Burning
do see
Spirit, that's the pickup.
Yep. So Bentham with this a really good start here with this 4 underground, but I suppose the one thing you could do here is if you go for a really deep underground cash out and go for a first place here, well then replay can't get a first place. So that is one way to consider trying to sort of counter grief that first.
The replay going to be on that Burning Spirit, on the Annie support, going to be angling towards Oxlingers. That means that everyone in their stage 4 roles are going to be holding on to Nikos, holding on to those TFs as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to go with Oxslinger. It feels like maybe that felt like the only thing he could do, because we haven't seen Oxslinger be that sort of first place comp. And so maybe this is kind of him accepting that this is going to be a hard game. And so, but I don't know, you got to take some big risks here. Maybe something like a Nico 3, but even trying to 3-star a 4 cost here when you're that contested is going to be really tough.
Of course, looking across the board, we saw several hero augments for that reroll, and one that we've much maligned here, David, in the Rock Solid.
It's back. It means business.
Oh no, even worse, League of Draven.
Oh, Tech Summers has finally gone off of his laser core game plan, and is this really what convinced him to do it? A Draven augment?
Off his plan and out of his damn mind.
I don't know. I think in this, it's definitely not one of those S-tier comps, but the fact he already has the Draven 2, and the fact that he knows a lot of the lobby is sort of contesting each other, this is a time where you could take this augment, get a bunch of gold with some big kills, and maybe convert this. And, he does need a 2nd or higher, so that is a really risky play. I don't know that I agree with it, but there's at least some argument to, using the Draven, getting these big gold, and trying to spike.
Titan Resolve has been slammed for replay, maybe signaling he's not actually going for Oxlingers, instead trying to go for some kind of a Gnar comp. We saw it from Enzo in the last game, but for a first place, you really need to high roll that 4-2 augment, especially when that Gadgettine +1 to actually even have a chance to do it. Enzo got close. Enzo got really strong. He lost again to a last stand board that was level 9, so maybe that's the angle replay is going for.
Yeah, I could see that for sure if you get that Gnar 3, Titan's Resolve, Bloodthirster with a 3rd really good item. But yeah, like you said, it's going to come down to that 4-2 augment. Can you get that Gadgettine emblem to give that 5 Gadgettine spike? That's going to give you the thing that's going to go well. The other question here is, again, Bentham with that, the underground. How well can he spike? Is that going to be the thing that counters it?
And again, he doesn't really need one of those insane spikes that we saw from Flancy on day number 2. He just needs to get that top 4.
I love it. Every single player in stage 2 going to be playing. Oh, whoops. Am I playing Gadgettine as well? Sorry, replay.
Yeah, I mean, this is correct, right? Like, Enzo using Gadgettine to get a top 4 here is exactly what he should be doing. I like this play here. Has, got the Shroud here. It's going to be able to counter. And like we talked about, if Gadgettine is the play, everyone better be holding every single Gnar. I better see a Gnar on everyone's bench, except maybe Setsuko if he's trying to go for that NA Pride, but otherwise, that's how you stop replay.
Two prankster going to be pretty common this game, I'm going to guess.
Bit of a win streak going on for Enzo. Going to lose it here. The Lulu can't do it now by herself up against that Sivir support. The mana tempering was so strong a few games ago. I think it essentially serves kind of like a two-cost version of Righteous Range, where it's a support augment that doesn't just help Infinity Team, it helps really any kind of AD carries coming into stage 4. Could be Bel'Veth, could even be a Warwick. I think I saw a game, not sure in what regionals, where they just had every single AD carry on their board and it worked out really well.
Yeah, Bel'Veth in particular, though, because every time you cast, you gain that extra AD. That Bel'Veth ends up doing a lot of damage. It also allows you to stack sort of full defensive items. You can get like a Bloodthirster or even two, allowing him to just stack up and do a ton of damage there. Pretty interesting that you have to keep playing that Sivir, but does open up some really cool options here. And we get a small egg on the carousel, which is, again, probably one of the harder ones for a lot of players to deal with, because you don't get that economy and you don't get a lot out of the egg even later, so this doesn't spike you as hard in the late game as you'd be hoping for.
Now here's my question to you both. Replay obviously knows he's getting griefed. He's scouted more than once in his life. What does it look like for him to try and defend against this? Is there any composition he can use as a refuge and be like, I can just hide the reveal until level 8 and everything's going to be fine?
I think it's less about that, because the honest answer to that is probably not. There's probably nothing you can do. But to the point where it's like, maybe Gnar 3 isn't your win condition, maybe it's Nunu 2. And so instead you just play strongest board, preserve as much health as possible, right? He's still 100 health. If he can just play strong boards, work his way to the late game, and then just overpower everybody, that is an option where, what do you do when somebody hits a Nunu 2? Nothing. You kind of just take it. And so that does leave him some options here. These are decent, Nunu items. You have that Gunblade, which can do a lot of work. This is a very strong board. I think that's why we're seeing the item slams as well. It's just a question of, can you hit it? And again, can you beat the underground player? That's going to be the other big thing you've got to take down.
And with Burning Spirit, I mean, you could normally go into Oxlingers, yes, but you're on a 4-win streak. If you get a high tempo start, ideally that common replay 10-win streak going to stage 4, maybe you just forego that Spellslinger altogether. You go to some kind of fast line board with a very strong Oxforce front line with Annie, with Viego, with these items potentially, and then just try and go for just legendaries, 2-cost them, and try and win out that way.
Yeah, the other interesting thing that's going to come down here is, like, again, if you talk about tempo, right? If replay's win condition is something like the Nunu, does everyone need to like roll down to 0 at 7 to apply as much pressure as possible to prevent him from hitting that? That's a lot of options. But a lot of the stuff we're talking about is very easy to see from this bird's level view we've got as casters. These players right now in the heat of the moment, especially the non-YBY1 players that also have to worry about their own board, that's a lot to manage. And so they may not be able to do it. And it's so much to ask of these players that replay may still be in a good spot.
And this is the first test, right? Full win streak going into Krugs would secure replay's top 4 percentage there and would allow him so much more flexibility. It's all on the board of Enzo to stop him, and it's not looking likely.
Big cast from LeBlanc, almost kills off that Annie, can't do it in time, and once again replay in his comfortable position. 5-win streak going into Krug, 30 gold now as well. The egg does hatch the components and the item comes through. Gonna be an anvil here.
Yeah, this is not what the opponents want to see right now. Is him at 100 health. This is his comfort zone. We've seen him convert this into big wins before. Now it's a question of what is that late game comp? What do you build here? And so this is what NA has shown that they're very strong at this tournament. We've seen them do very well in the stage 2 and stage 3. It's these stage 4 plays from some of our eastern regions that they build those really crazy end game comps. And again, all that matters for, oh that's a tome. If that's a Gadgettine, that could be really crazy right here. So we're gonna have to see if this pops. He needs to get he's got 7 traits in. I would recommend trying to get in 1 more trait for 1 more round. Try to increase the odds of seeing a Gadgettine emblem. If he gets that early, that's a massive, massive play here.
Oh, and he's prepping for it. He's got that Sona ready to go, baby.
Yeah, so now he's at 8 traits here. He's gonna let it go next round, see what the augment is, pop this. If this is a Gadgettine, this might put him in a position where this is definitely possible to end from here.
Wants to protect the streak, though, is still a 5-win streak, has leveled up to 6, has a chance to slam one of these items, thinking what the best option is. Could just be the Hodge for now, and has the Gadgettine BT as well.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating. This fight right now, up against a Jax 2, but it is a Jax 2 with no items, so may struggle here a little bit, but even if he does, it's not a big deal, because right now we're looking at what can we get here. There is another option here. Even if he doesn't hit Gadgettine, Heart is another option. We've seen Heart do very well. Some crazy, even like Viego. Viego might be the kind of champion that a lot of people don't see coming and could do very well with this Titans and this Gunblade. So it does end up losing the fight. The Jax doing very well. Setsuko, not really helping NA here, but definitely definitely helping himself. And so now we'll see what the augment is. And the bigger thing is we'll see what that tome is.
We have to check pre-replay's board. I have to see what that trait will be. As you mentioned, hearts.
Oh, it's a prismatic.
And prismatic as well to start things off.
Whew. All right, so YBY1, Cursed Crown, definitely an interesting option here. Cursed Crown could apply a lot of pressure. That'd be one of those really good griefing options that could work. Ends up going with Celestial Blessing, though. I don't agree with that play here. We're looking at replay.
He has rolled.
Okay, he's rolled it. So Future Sight. The problem, none of these, I feel like if you're going to go for the first, you almost have to take level up here.
Yeah.
You go level up, we talked about that new, that being the condition that you can win. You are at like pretty close to 100 health. You let it sit here, and so we're past the augments here. We're going to want to see what that tome is. That tome's going to be a big deal though, but moving over to Benton's board.
Yeah, hasn't ripped out that cash out just yet. So going to be going for one more lock with this underground board.
Yeah, and again, we talked about how the underground board can be the other thing that if you get far enough away. All right, so we're looking at replay's board. He got an Ox Force, unfortunately.
Not the highest
so
cap.
That is not what we were looking for. That's not the Gadgetine. That's not the Heart. Ox Force not bad by any means, but that does breathe a sigh of relief for a lot of the opponents in this lobby that you're not going to have to fight that 5 Gadgetine in stage 3 when it spikes to such massive areas.
And that win streak was ended in that last fight by Setsuko. Looks like this might finally be another win for replay. Could start another win streak now in the stage 3 and just trying to go a more usual Oxlingers line with the Ox Force front line.
The other interesting thing there is he rolled down. He took wise spending and rolled down a lot. That's not a first place play, so it's very fascinating to see that wise spending is going to allow him to roll and play a very strong board, but it feels like a top 4 play.
Of course, we do have Setsuko almost on the full streak, and wise spending picked up by 2 players as well. Just to point out, Bintum also on this augment, and this is going to allow replay at least a chance of getting those units that have been heavily contested. That's the one advantage it'll have over level up.
Setsuko needed a big game in this game 4. He has high-end shopping, has a chance to maybe make it to those boards that are going to get really crazy. And Setsuko just loves to play those 5-cost legendaries.
Yeah, it feels like Setsuko's doing exactly what we talked about in the pregame, which was, you know, he knows that the rest of the lobby's kind of be focused on replay, should be able to play a little greedy, takes that high-end shopping, which means his stage 3 is going to be a bit weaker, but he's going to be able to hit level 8, hit those legendaries that we've seen him be so good at, and he should be able to come away from like a first or second, which at least puts him in contention if they can get to game 6 and maybe make a crazy comeback here.
And replay, looking at this TF, not very happy to see it on the opponent's board. Archangel's already slammed, buying so much time and maybe not allowing replay to have that comfortable stage 4, finding his carries easily.
Yeah, it's interesting. Looking at the health totals here, we see a 38 and a 43. That, again, really not great here. Replay sitting at 80. Got to keep an eye on that. Setsuko doing really well. The fact that he's win streaking with high-end shopping while being, you know, sort of down a Prismatic for a while, that puts him in a really good situation. And I have to imagine, again, this is the game Setsuko needed to at least hopefully get back in the running.
And at the bottom of the table, you mentioned it earlier more, we have 2 players that are incredibly low on HP, but I don't think Shimapen is on Underground. We know Bintum is.
Yeah, and being that low on you know, so we get to see a cash out here. Spear of Shojin, Obsidian Cleaver, but again, I think if you're playing here with only needing 2 points, you go again, and sure enough, he does. Also finds the Samira. I feel like here you level up instantly, and he's doing that kind of with the wise spending, which is correct, to roll down, put in that Samira, play 5 underground.
Oh, finds 2 Samiras.
Nice. If he can get 1 more, that'd be really good. He is holding a lot of units here, so it's going to prevent him from leveling, and he's going a bit slow here, kind of struggling with what to do. Does put the 4 underground in, so only going to be able to get 4 locks here, but if he can go up 1 more heist or even 2, that should give him a really big boost here.
And we're seeing now Enzo's board. He's been throughout this entire tournament just tempo slamming item, trying to stay as healthy as possible, scraping for those good positions coming into stage 4 and 5. We're seeing the case again with a Hextech Retribution, trying to go for some sort of a Riftwalker board later into the game.
Yeah, look at those Lulu items. We have a Ginsu's Deathblade Shiv. So, like you said, very much a tempo play, trying to do his best to apply that pressure to the lobby, try to hurt replay. But right now, replay sitting at 80, so replay fighting back a bit. It's just a question of, can replay cap out to knock it here?
Bintum now is going to be rolling down a little bit more with that wise spending, getting a couple upgrades across the board. There we go. We'll hit on to level 7.
Yeah, it's going to stay the 4 underground here, which is going to be a little bit slower of a build-up here. But based on his health, maybe that's correct to try to keep himself, pretty preserved. Does have really good Sona items here. I like these Sona items. But right now, really kind of hoping if he can hit the Vi 3, that's going to be a great way to cap out. We've seen it before a bunch of times this tournament, how good Unrelenting Force can be.
Talking about Tex, he is still win streaking at 90 with the Draven board we mentioned earlier on, so is trying to make it work and is succeeding for now, at least in this stage 3. But Setsuko, another player, as you mentioned, has lost his streak count, but still 93 HP. He's going to have so much time with that huge HP buffer in stage 4 and 5 to try and go maybe even level 8 and then start rolling down for those huge 5 costs.
I mean, we're talking so much about Bintum's Vi, but Setsuko's is incredibly strong as well. That boxing lessons giving him a great front line, and we're seeing why he's been lasting so long. Not quite enough to beat Bintum's newly upgraded board, but enough to save himself a ton of HP.
Yeah, and again, the fact that he used the Sunfire and the Ionic Spark, that applies a lot of early pressure as well. And again, he's kind of down to Prismatic right now, so that's not a bad loss for Setsuko by any means. But yeah, Summers with the Draven, we were kind of talking about that earlier, and so applying that win streak, getting that extra gold, we'll have to peek in on that. It also has the Radiant Hurricane. That is an amazing item for this Draven. So if he can get the Draven 3, that's what this is going to come down to. He also has a lesser duplicator, so the odds of hitting it are pretty high here. You kind of want to hit it right about now, though, because right about now is where it will be very strong before everybody else spikes, get a lot of damage in. So I want to see this roll down.
And look at the gold he has in his board. Fully upgraded front line, a Rammus 2 with a Sunfire. The Wukong also upgraded, giving that extra HP to Draven. So maybe this is what you need to make this comp work. You need a very good spot. Tech Summers identified it accordingly, as you mentioned, with that 2-star Draven at 2-1. And now he's going to have what looks like a very easy game from this point on.
No AD, so that could potentially cause problems in the late game, mitigated slightly by that Radiant.
That was great here.
Yep.
Yeah, the Radiant Hurricane gives so much extra AD and allows him to skip any front line he may get stuck on, so I really like this itemization. You could argue no healing, so maybe something like a Thrill or a Celestial Blessing would be really big, but otherwise this is good. The one sad thing, though, is that was a roll down a little bit. Didn't go below 50 by any means, but he only has 4 Dravens, 5 if you count the duplicator. That's not where you want to be. Right now you want to be sitting at about 7, maybe 8, or eventually hit it, right? Like we saw the Yasuo game where the Yasuo player hit their Yasuo right about here, so a little bit low here, and we're kind of seeing just how the Draven can struggle here. I do like the Quicksilver Slam, but now it's worn off.
Can he still win this fight? He does, and this is huge still. Is able to get that 50 gold interest threshold, has that 7 win streak going on as well. I imagine at some point now, you value the win streak enough where you want to roll down and try and hit. Rolls down, doesn't really find any great options there for Tech Summers.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward because on the one hand, the Ace Heart would give you another Draven, which is kind of nice, but you're not going to get to 4 Ace from that position, so you can't really take that. And so it feels like something like Stand United is going to be the play there.
Of course, the biggest threat in the game this game is Replay. He is the only player on check, the only one who could claim the title of champion this very game, and he's just hit an Annie 3 despite being contested throughout the entire game.
And that is a naked Annie 3, no tank items on the unit just yet, so not going to do too much right now, but Stand United as a last augment choice for Replay as well. Overall, what's your opinion on the augment? I haven't seen it pop out as this set as much as it did in set 7, for example.
So Stand United is a great staple choice there. You've got 5 traits in, so it's just a nice boost of power. And for something like the Oxforce Slinger comp that's pretty good, just that little extra boost is not bad. It's going to make your TF2 kind of, or TF1 kind of feel like a TF2. It'll be some good damage here. So this feels like a board, if he can hit that TF2, will at least be good. But again, my big concern here is this feels like a second place board. This does not feel like a first place board unless something goes really right.
Seeing it even struggle a little bit against that Draven board. Will take Texas board down, though.
It's
so close to hitting.
Yeah.
But Axiomark Draven, a bit too wokage maybe for this point in the game for Tech Summers. He needs to get at least 7 points. That's at least at second place in this game. We'll see if Draven can do it for him. Players like Enzo only need a 5th to reach those 18 points. And Bintum takes a loss there.
So we get our cash out here. That's
yeah, you take that.
Yeah, Tactician's Crown, 8 loot orbs. This is going to be a mix of items and gold, but the fact that he gets that Tactician's Crown is good. Also manages to get a duplicator out of one of the orbs. That's a nice spike here. So got a lot of items here. This should allow him to spike up. So again, now it's a question of how does he convert this here. Trying to roll for that Vi is going to be a little tricky here, but because he has the Tactician's Crown now, he can play like it's a level 8 board, roll at 7, and hopefully find that Vi 3.
Wise spending as well is doing a lot for him. Yep. That cash out looks way less impressive than it is because he's got all of those modifiers.
He needs that potentially that chip. He needs to start slamming items right now. Slams the redemption as well. He has to give these items to that Nico, to that TF. They need to start doing more damage. Facing off against replay with that Annie 3. She's almost dead now at this point, but Vi has been taken down. Frontline is pretty much all gone now for Bindium. He's at 20 HP. He needs to start winning all of these next few fights, but unfortunately it won't be enough. Replay seems to be winning this fight just barely by 2 units. 13 HP now for the Korean player.
Yeah, I want to see him roll down here. Like I said, he's trying to get that Vi. He's so close. He's got that duplicator, but that Vi is going to be a massive spike. We did see a bit of slowness there with the item slamming, but he is at 13 health. This should give him some carousel priority. He could grab something like the Janna. I know he's looking for that fiddle, so he could possibly get a Dragon's Claw. So we'll have to see what he goes for. He's really aiming towards that fiddle, I think, yeah, for the Dragon's Claw. He's got plenty of backline damage. I feel like if this Vi 3 comes online, this is still a first place board, and that's all we need to happen, right? Is that'll stop replay from getting first, give a bunch more people check as we go into that game 5.
Enzo picks up a Jhin, a huge pickup for him. Not sure exactly how much Jhin he was on at the moment. If it's an upgrade, that's so massive for the French player.
Yeah, and he just needs a 5th in order to get into that checkmate position. So that would be huge for him as we head back to Bintium's board. And we see level ups coming out across the board. Enzos and Setsuko both going to level 8, notably for Setsuko on that high-end shopping.
Yeah, Setsuko was the next one I wanted to talk about, because we talked about him when he had the high-end shopping, and you know he was at 90 health. Now he's down to 55, so right about now is where we would expect that to hopefully come online. Bentham, I think you do. Oh, it doesn't take the Twisted Fate.
Oh, so double fiddle. But he's so slow to get these upgrades and finds the fiddle too. Is that going to be enough though? 13 HP at this point in the game. We're almost in stage 5.
He just needs one more win to survive. And Tech Summer, the newly upgraded Draven 3, starts tearing through the front line of Bintium. Here comes the first ultimate, and it's massive. Takes out one, avoids the CC from the Fiddlesticks as well. But that Vi, still uncontested, puts out the shield from the BT, from the skill. There goes the healing from Sona. And it's not enough. Tech's board will be taken down, and Bintium survives another day.
Yeah, Bentham's in such an interesting spot here, because you can see that Mana Zane on his bench. He doesn't really have the thing that he wants to put it on, right? Something like an Aurelion Soul or a Nico, and so he's still kind of struggling to lock it in. He does get the Fiddle 2, but Fiddle 2 without items isn't really as big of a 5-cost spike as you would expect, and so he really needs to get some big items on that to get it some repeat casts, something like a Gunblade or a Bloodthirster. The Jeweled Gauntlet is a nice start, but it's just not quite enough.
The TF2 would be so big for replay. It's even more weird that Bintium sold those TFs knowing that his direct opponent replay is actually trying to play this Auxlinger's comp, has an Annie 3 that can become a very good frontline as we move later into the game, but has not found the upgrade. Just going to stick to that 30 gold threshold for now, because he knows PvE rounds coming up. Going to try and get as much interest to try and cap out higher.
Yeah, and I think that's what we talked about, right? Is like these players are struggling just enough to play their boards. TFT can be a really hard game. To also think about your opponent's boards and everything you can do to grief them is really challenging here. And so I don't fault him for selling those TFs, just trying to stay alive and make sure. Because the worst thing Bintium could do here was get 8th, as that'll make it so he doesn't get check. He just needs to at least get 7th place with that board.
And this Annie holding on for so long for Shimapen, walks up to the TF, kills him herself, and a big win for Japan. A big win for the whole lobby, really. Yeah. Finally, replay losing some of that HP.
Yeah, like you said, big win for the lobby here. Replay not looking that strong. We talked about how Oxforce Slinger's not necessarily that big first place comp he needs, and so this is what the lobby's really hoping for, that we can get going and move to that game 5. I do like these this thing with the Belveth here. We got the scoped weapons. This is what we saw win earlier today with that Mana Tempered. So this could be a really powerful comp if he can get that Belveth 2 online.
Bit of a mishmash of units as well. Has that Warwick in there, just saying, if it's got AD, try it out, see what happens. And Flancy, of course, in second place right now, seems to be what he needs in order to get into Checkmate.
Setsuko playing the game he enjoys playing. This is really his comfort zone. We talked about the early streaking, yes, but really it's all about the lane game. Find a champion duplicator as well, and this is going to get really crazy really fast.
Yeah, that's a duplicator, and he's got 4 Urgots already, and he's technically level 9 shops.
It's time.
So this could end up getting pretty zany.
Oh my goodness, these shops.
It's fascinating because he's got a Mordekaiser 2 here. I feel like the Mordekaiser 2 right now is actually how he plays around this. He gets the Mordekaiser 2, builds something like a Jeweled Gauntlet on this Mordekaiser. The Urgots are going to be giving him even more items. And so this is what we were talking about earlier, where Setsuko is going to take that high-end shopping.
Oh, goodness. Syndra 2 Urgot in the shop. You can maybe get some gold off of the chest here and just buy his Urgot without locking. He has to slam these items, though.
Yeah, I want to see Sunfire on Fiddle. I want to see that Jeweled Gauntlet get in there. Let's see what happens here. We see a Chalice. That's a really smart play here to make the Mordekaiser even stronger. There's the Jeweled Gauntlet. This is a strong board, and with that Zhonya's, you might get a second cap.
Goodness.
Bad news for Bintum. He just needed a 7th place and then runs into Setsuko's massively upgraded board.
Oh no.
Looks like Korea's last hope will be denied in round number 4.
A face of disappointment, just staring right into that camera, not able to make sense of what just occurred. Setsuko hit a massive spike off of that high-end shopping. Not just Bintium though. Replay also in shambles, seeing that board, seeing what is that board will become in the future as well with all these massive upgrades. And Tex, the biggest thing for me with this Draven board, there's no healing. I mean, the Draven cannot really 1v9 as it's used to, and Axiomark was not really the best option in that gold augment slot.
Yeah, you can see he's even struggling a bit right now with, what, 6 items on the bench right now? Definitely not where you want to be with 6 items on the bench in stage 5. So right now, Tex, I think, really kind of hoping for like a 4th, but Setsuko, the big story here, does use the duplicator to have 2 Urgot 2s, a Mordekaiser 2 with a Chalice. This is a strong board. This feels like it could be Setsuko's win, which if so, will push us to game 5.
Yeah, and now YBY1's board, the next person at risk of elimination, only needed an 8th this game, so he's safe with that checkmate. And a damn good thing, too, because Setsuko's board is looking unstoppable.
Anyone that faces Setsuko is going to be in big trouble, especially if you are at 1 life like YBY is. SEA also taken down in 7th place in this game 4. Enzo now in 6th. He needs to get at least a 5th to get those 4 points he needs for the 18-point threshold to be in checkmate that next game to try and actually fight for the 1st place.
Yeah, this is fascinating. We talked about how game 5 could be like 4 or 5 people, but right now with Bintium, going out in 8th and Enzo looking bad, we could only end up with 2.
And the matchup pool is so tough for Enzo. Setsuko's there as well. Tex Summers, who has hit that fully upgraded Draven board, and Shimapen, who's currently streaking.
It's going to be dangerous for Enzo. This Jhin is going to decide it all. With the Viego in the backline, we'll swap into those mascots. And now running up against this Oxslinger's board with that Janna, itemized Janna 2. This is Shimapen's board that has been streaking out. It's all going to be up to this Jhin, uncontested. No stuns coming out thanks to that Quicksilver. But Janna in the backline starting to fire away. That Shojin giving her tornado after tornado. All up to Jhin, and he's not up to the task. So Enzo takes a massive hit and survives with just 3 HP.
Not just that, the gap is big, but the 2 players that are closest to Enzo are really not going to be dying anytime soon, so the gap is really from Enzo all the way up to Replay at 35.
The big thing to note there is Setsuko lost that fight. And so Setsuko losing is really fascinating. I'm very curious, but Replay also lost, and so Setsuko losing does open things up here. Apparently he lost to Tech Summers and the Draven of all
Draven,
things.
Axiomark, it's time. Start spamming the ladder. We know the new tech.
Whew. Yeah, all you need is a Radiant Hurricane and, be pretty uncontested.
Gun to my head, I never would have picked that board to beat Setsuko's.
Renegade Emblem comes in for Enzo. Is this what he needed to actually hit some sort of a spike? The Jewel Lotus is also really big, allowing both the Jhin and the Viego to have a 4th item with the Guard Breaker already slammed. Yep. But still, his matchup pool is so tough against the 2 players that are, I think, the strongest in the lobby right now, Setsuko and Tex.
The thing to talk about with Setsuko's board and the reason why he probably lost is that Mordekaiser does a lot of damage and can take out 2-star units pretty well, but is going to struggle against a Draven. And then there wasn't much backup damage behind 2 unitemized Urgots, so getting a look at Tech Summers here up against this Jhin. This is a fight that Enzo absolutely has to win to keep his hope of getting in check alive.
This Draven board that just took down Setsuko's massive legendary board will now be fighting off against Enzo's, his last chance to make it into that checkmate. But it looks damn good. Enzo takes the win.
The backline sniper doing just enough. Viego as well. The Rammus does not actually stun the Jhin all throughout that fight. Key things that had to happen for that fight to go in Enzo's favor. But still, we mentioned it's not just one fight. He has to somehow get 5th. And everyone is so strong in this lobby at this moment.
Yeah, that 4th shot combined with the Jeweled Lotus just doing so much. And we just saw that 5 Renegade spike. That Jhin almost took down that Draven in 1 shot, just showing the power of how much sniper damage he can do there.
Clancy, we haven't seen much of his board in this stage 5, but he is on mana tempering, has all those different AD carries that could be doing so much. Enzo we see hidden behind the PCs, trying his best to fight for EMEA, fight for the last hope we have from the European continent.
All right, looking at this up against the Setsuko board.
Uh-oh.
See, this feels like the bad matchup because you've got the Mordekaiser that could just one-shot the Jhin. So right now we're going to be looking where that Mordekaiser building goes.
Here it comes.
There it is, and that's
there
dead
goes
Jhin.
the Jhin.
That's a dead hope for EMEA, and that is going to be 1 point away from Czech, unfortunately.
And
So unfortunate. 6th place is not enough. Going to have 17 points going to the next game. Going to have to hope that no one can win next game. But that's going to be so tough with so many players now reaching that 18-point threshold.
I mean, we came into this and we said there are 3 hopes for this game that are very likely to make check. Enzo needed a 5th, out in 6th. Bintum needed a 7th, out in 8th. YBY, the only one who's guaranteed to be on Checkmate next game.
Yeah, and that's really big because it means there's just even more chances to go to a game 6 and a game 7. And for someone like Setsuko, this is best case scenario, right? Because Setsuko could easily just claw his way in and get in check in that game 6 as well.
Good news for Setsuko. Good news for Enzo. Is this the first time that finally NA and EMEA can shake hands in this World Championship?
So Setsuko right now at 7 Urgots. Does get 2 lesser duplicators, which unfortunately aren't particularly helpful, but does allow him to get that Morgana upgraded here. So it's a question of, will he find some more Urgots? Will we see our first 3-star 5 cost? It'll be interesting to see.
He can just hold so much here as well. He's got that 2-star Syndra, so even if he doesn't find those upgrades, he can just hit legendary after legendary after legendary. This board does not have a cap.
Yeah, especially with the Urgots continuing to generate components, generate extra gold, he's going to be getting even stronger as every round goes on. Like I said, I feel like his only bad matchup is that Tech Summers, but now that the Urgots are getting itemized, he actually has some backup damage and might be okay.
The only player now in Checkmate trying to win out, but going to have a very tough time at 13 HP, 1 life essentially left, and facing off against this Flancy. The Aatrox doing so much in the front line. The Belveth with the scope weapons trying her best to delete the front line of the Auxlingers as fast as possible. Not going to be the case. TF still alive. The damage coming through. It's only Belveth left, and she can't do it by herself. Flancy, or can she? No, she can't. Flancy taken down a notch. 7 HP. Replay still left alive and fighting for a chance to become world champion.
So Flancy's another one, right, that if he could get a 3rd or higher, could have a shot moving to Checkmate, and that's not looking great right now. So at the one hand, at least Replay is knocking all these opponents out and making sure that next game there's not as many people that can try to take it for the win. But right now, this board just not looking strong enough. He's got that unitemized Warwick that right now kind of feels like a bit of a waste of a slot, generating an extra Shen, which isn't really that valuable here. Plenty of damage with the Belveth and the Samira, but just not enough frontline, it feels like.
If Tex gets knocked down to 3rd place, Replay is only challenged by 1 player next game. And you can just leave this board the rest of the way it is.
But with this HP buffer, it has to be enough for Tex. He has 48 HP at this point in stage 6.
Shimapin at 10 right now, though. If Shimapin ends up winning as well, could enter that check as well. So that would actually be pretty crazy. Of all the people that could have made it, for only him to reach that would be really wild.
It's all in that 1st place slot as Shimapin does take a loss there.
And that's it.
Replay taking a 5th place, so no champion decided this game.
Setsuko lost.
Oh, this is getting a little bit spicy, guys. We got single digits on 3 of the players in the top 4, and right at the top, it's Tech Summers. Latam's hope at a world champion for the very first time.
So this happened again, what we talked about, right? Setsuko lost to Tech Summers, again, really struggling to take down that Draven with these Mordekaisers, which, by the way, now he has 6 of them. So definitely a lot of 5 costs here, but just can't beat that Supers Draven board. It's just kind of a weakness there. And so he really needs as many points as he can, but Shimapin losing there was really big. And so it feels like Tech Summers right now is actually our next big hope that could get check here with just a 2nd or higher that he seems very guaranteed to get.
Now, Shimapin on the right side with this Janna board is going to be running against Tech Summers. Latam's hope has the Draven firing away, contesting that backline. Twisted Fate alive for the time being, but this Draven just keeps firing and isn't going to get stunned up, isn't taking much damage at all. Finally gets taken down. Tech Summers takes a loss. Meanwhile, Flancy on the left side of the board survives, and I believe, yeah, that's Setsuko out in 4th.
As we take a bit of a breather here, I'm going to remind you all about Shimapin's story, because he came into this set trying to avenge title from Set 7's World Championship, trying to fight against the Chinese, and in this case now makes it all the way into top 8 on his first ever set competing at a high level.
So the big news here, Flancy getting third or higher. Flancy is going to make it into check. So that's good for Flancy here. Tech Summers needs second or better. Pretty sure he's going to get it. That's going to move him into check. So this is now all about Shimapen. Can he get a first place here? And that's going to be a really hard sell. But if he can, that's another player. And so we'll have 5 next game. Right now we're guaranteed for 4. Could be a 5th. Big item transition here on the the Nunu here, getting really good, allowing him Mascot. Mascot going to give that Draven a little extra healing. It is percent-based healing. So that's going to allow that Draven with a ton of health to at least just have a little bit that'll help.
But that played a little bit awkward, though.
Yeah, not exactly what you're looking for on that Nunu. Tech Summers fighting for that first place, but Shimapen is the board we really need to look out for, because if he goes out, he has lost his chance at Checkmate. Flancy on the left is surviving for the time being. Massive ultimates coming out, and Tex will take down Flancy. Meanwhile, on the right side, Tex, that board finally falls to Shimapen. This could be that 5-player situation we spoke of.
Yeah, everything that had to happen is happening. Flancy third, Tex, even if he's second, he's already guaranteed his spot with those 18 points in the next game, having a chance to become world champion as well. So, I mean, this is absolutely crazy. If Shimapen can do it, if he can finally claw his way back up to that first place position.
The big thing helping here is you look at this Janna. It's a Janna 2 with Windy. That is so much extra oomph onto that Twisted
Fully
Fate.
prepped, no less.
Yep,
7 TFs as well.
7 TFs. If he can get a TF3, that'll certainly lock it in. But right now, he's already feeling strong enough. And the problem is the Draven board doesn't have much bigger to go. A Nunu 2 isn't even that big of a difference here. A lot of it is going to come down to these Thieves Gloves items. And the Thieves Gloves items on Lee Sin were pretty good this fight. So if he had a shot, it feels like it might be this fight.
Rammus getting Zephyr is going to slow down the board here for Tech Summers, but the Draven still uncontested. The big boy in the back stays alive as Twisted Fate starts firing away. Will finally take down the Rammus. Draven with a huge ultimate though, and it looks like Shimapen takes second place. Only 4 players on check going into round number 5.
I have learned my lesson. I will never doubt Tex again. Even if he moves off of laser, somehow he's made a League of